Guys, if you introduce yourself.
I'm Dan Lang.
I'm Glenn Kroll.
September the 15th of last year. I guess a little bit before that, I suffered from addiction of both alcohol and drug addiction. On September 15th of last year, I got arrested for a possession charge. And when I got arrested, I was just so tired of living life the way I was living, to be honest with you. I'm not going to say that I was happy about being arrested, but I was relieved. You know, I was just relieved to be out of that life. And my whole thought process back then was I didn't know what was going to happen, but I knew that something needed to happen. And so I was going to ride my time out in jail, not bond out or anything. And I figured, to be honest, it'd be about a year because I was also on probation for another attempt possession charge in another county. So I knew it wasn't going to go well. When I was in jail, I had some very interesting things. I've always ran from God, so to speak. I blamed God for every bad thing that's ever happened in my life, from suicide of my father to some things that happened to me in the Marine Corps. But while I was in jail, a pastor one day had came in just to talk to people, and I asked him if he knew of a program where I could get reading glasses because they had no reading glasses when I got arrested. And he asked me what strength, and he went down to the local Walgreens and he bought 5 pair. He gave me a pair, and he donated the other 4 pair to the jail. And that day that I got those glasses, we went to the library in the jail, and I picked out a murder mystery book. It was a James Patterson book, I don't know, and this little book, it's a very easy to read, probably 250 page book called When God Winks at You. And that was the strangest thing because I would never, that wasn't in my life to pick up anything, including a Bible, anything that said God on it. I don't know why I picked it up, but I picked it up. I took it back to my cell, and that day I decided to read the first chapter out of it. And it's a very interesting book, and basically the premise of the book is, what if there are no coincidences in this world? What if everything that happens for a reason? You know, like if you're having a bad day and that friend that you haven't talked to for a couple of years calls you up, you know, out of the blue and gets you out of that hole. What if that's really God's way of bringing you out of that? And it's a really cool premise. But I put the book down and I went out, and in the cell that I was, there was 2 other kids, 19 and I think 22 years old. Why I started talking to them about this, at that time I had no earthly idea. Today I have my ideas. But I started talking to them about Schoolhouse Rock jingles, you know, that I used to watch on Saturday morning. And they're both just kind of looking at me like you're a crazy old man, right? So I was just like, whatever. And I went back in my cell, and I sat down and I picked up that book again. And chapter 2 of this book talks about the author, and the author of this book became famous from writing Schoolhouse Rock jingles. Yeah, that was totally amazing to me, and it was. I'm gonna say that was, to me, that was my God moment. I didn't know what was gonna happen from there, but I never felt that good ever in my life, and I just knew for some reason that things were going to be okay. So my time proceeds on 54 days into my jail term. My foot swells up and I wind up going to the doctor, and I get not very good diagnosis of a bone disease. And I went from a $20,000 bond to a signature bond in the matter of a few hours. And that scared me to death because I'm the kind of person that you know, I got to have things set up like dominoes, and when one of those dominoes come out of that place, it just doesn't work well for me. And my whole thing was to be in jail and so long story short, I told the jailer I had no place to go because I just knew if I went back, I would continue using, I would get arrested, and the vicious cycle would just continue. And the jailer said, we have the number to the Open Door Mission in Omaha. We'll give you a ride to the front door. And never once thought that I would ever be at the Open Door Mission. And the ride there, I got to be honest, I'm picturing a bunch of drunks, dirty drunks laying around a newspaper. That's truly what I thought. And man, I was pleasantly surprised. The Open Door Mission in Omaha, Nebraska is an extraordinary place that has truly saved my life and renewed my faith in the world, in society, that, you know, not everybody's out there to take something from you. And that's the type of people that I hung around when I was using, were those kind of people. And so I forgot that there were truly good people left in this world. And you see that every day at the Open Door Mission, from volunteers to people that come in to teach classes. But I went there November 8th of last year. November 9th, I joined their 8-month New Life recovery program. And it has been absolutely amazing. I got baptized on December 3rd of last year. And then April came around and I was, I guess back up a little bit. In that time, that's when I got to meet my buddy Glenn Testimonial. So tell me a little bit about you, Glenn. Tell me how amazing I was, you know.
Dan was an amazing individual. Amazing.
He's very truthful.
Last summer of 17 was a dark and dangerous spot for me. November 15th of 17, I tried to commit suicide because of the black hole that I was in and out of jails. Was something that I was used to, and I was not going to go there anymore. So I made the decision to end all, to be all. And God intervened into my plan. He had a bigger and better plan for me. And I was not happy with that plan, and I was angry for quite a few months. I also was incarcerated and was able to go to the Life Living dorm. And I picked up a pamphlet that talked about prayers being answered. And the question was, how do we know when our prayers are being answered? And that was my question. When are my prayers ever going to be answered? And it's when the right people are in the right spot, and I'm in the right spot, I'll see those prayers answered. And I've been given opportunities and blessings. And that's when I met Dan at the Open Door Mission. Still mad at the world. I got to listen to Dan's story and find out where he's at. And when I thought I had it bad, I'm not the only guy who had it bad. We're all different individuals, but we all suffered. And I've been tagging on to his shirt tails ever since. Trying to find a new attitude, trying to find a new will to live, trying to seek what others have that I don't have. Try to grab a hold of what it is that makes people smile and wake up every day. And, you know, the Lord has put on my heart that I'm chasing the wrong things. I'm chasing sin. And with sin is death. And I am glad to be part of what I'm part of today. Do you want to tell them about the resort?
Yeah, the retreat. And that was awesome. And Glenn was an angry individual when he came in. But Glenn's a great guy. But that brings us to April of this year, where Glenn and I and a few other guys, probably 10 other guys, probably,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
we were kind of voluntold that we had to go on this Men's 33 retreat. And I'm not going to lie.
1 year to live retreat.
The 1 year to live retreat. I apologize. Yes, the 1 year to live retreat. Which I don't know which was worse, being told that we had to go to the retreat or being told that we only had 1 year to live. But I tell you that we went, obviously, because we had to go. And I was not expecting to have a good time or anything else. And wow, truly was I blown away in amazement. The retreat, which is very tough emotionally because so much had been drawn out. I'm not afraid today to share with all of you that when I was from the ages of 10 to 12 years old, I was molested by my sister. For 40 years of my life, I held that in. And who knows what all pain that caused. I'm sure that was a lot of involvement in my addiction, in life. And as hard as it was, that was the first time ever in my life that I ever opened up, and would have never thought I could open up to a group of men the way that I did. But it was the Lord picked the absolute best place for that to happen. You know, I shared that. I shared some things that happened to me in the Marine Corps. And the weekend that I dreaded the most has probably been the best weekend of my life. You know, Glenn was in my small group there. And, you know, for me, real quick, from that, not only the weekly follow-up that we had to that retreat, that I've just grown to love those men. I mean, I've shared to those men what I've not shared to anybody else, and it's just been what I've probably looked for my whole life, and the closest thing I ever found to that was the Marine Corps. But it's a whole, you know, I mean, it's a different deal, but it's the same, one and the same. June 12th of this year, I had an amputation from that bone disease, and that was probably that Tuesday morning that I left to go to the hospital. Was probably the most scared I've ever been in my entire life. Just scared of the unknown, scared of the unknown, just not knowing. And when we pulled up, the guys that had went on that retreat, they were waiting with me up before I left, and I thought they were all just being nice and waiting, you know. And then I went out to get on the van, and they're all following. I'm like, "Where are you guys going?" They said, "Well, we're just going to make sure you get there okay." So I'm like, "Well, that's cool." So we drive up to the hospital, and when we pulled up in front of Clarkson Hospital, all the guys from Men's 33 were there. And I'm not afraid to say I cried like a baby. And we prayed, and I'd like to say that every bit of my fear went away. Not all of it, but a big, huge part of it. Just knowing that those guys were there, that those guys cared, that those guys took time out of their day to come and talk to me to ease my anxiety and my fears. That's what the 1 year to live is about. It's not just what it's about. It's not just talk. It's what it's about. It's what it stands for. It's what it is. And it's just been great. It has been great seeing those guys that I've gotten so close to. One of those guys, Marty, that was the instructor for our small group. Marty stayed when, you know, the other men left and went to work. Marty went in and stayed with me, and I don't even know what we talked about while we were in the waiting room, but he kept my mind occupied so I didn't think about what was going on, and it kept me relaxed. And Marty stayed by my side through the whole time while they were prepping me, while they put the IV in, and he's just randomly talking about his wife and his daughter, and, you know, just about whatever. And I don't know that I really realized it so much that day of what he did, but he was amazing. I mean, it was amazing. And before I was rolled into surgery, we prayed. Marty and I prayed, and that that is something that I've looked for my entire life. Because my entire life I've grown up where men are men, and your men aren't supposed to show emotion, and there was a lot of emotion showed that day, and there's been a lot of emotion showed at the One Life to Live retreat. I mean, it's amazing. Well, if you want to share a little bit of that?
Yeah, the retreat I walked into, believing that I was by myself. I was going to do what I was asked to do. I had no idea that I was about to take a spiritual walk on the path that I was able to take. I brought a backpack of burdens with me that I've been holding for 30 plus years. Not to mention all the masks that I've been wearing all these years, dealing with everything from abandonment to drug and alcohol, just not pleasing to myself, and a slight edge of spiritual belief that I didn't put into full-time work in my life. And I was able to go to this retreat, talk to a bunch of men, listen to the stories, and then a weight was lifted off of me as I was able to tell my story to a stranger who didn't judge me, who sincerely loved me and wanted to know how they could help me. And all they had to do was sit back and listen. And for me to be able to sit back and listen to another man and have him listen to me, the joy that I felt from having that camaraderie with them people, I left that retreat knowing that God was knocking on my door, and I was trying to open it, but I kept trying to close it. And then through the 12-week follow-up course that we got to have, I slowly took those doors off the hinges and was able to share my innermost demons and release them and share them and develop a friendship and a relationship with a bunch of men who I know, if I needed to, I could call to save my life. And I've never been able to say that about another man, another individual in my life, because it's been me and me alone. My trust has been shot, and it's mostly because nobody could trust me. And this 1 year to live retreat showed me that I don't have to rely on myself. I can rely on others. I'm able to trust. And God has a plan for me. God has a plan for all of us. And if I trust in Him, He will provide. I was scared of God. I was scared that He was to condemn me. I learned how much He loved me, and He's been giving me blessings every day. I just have to choose to open my eyes and see them, and I get to watch a blessing, a miracle in the making every day as I get to share days with Dan and see what he's gone through, and the things in my life and the things that I get to share with the guys 1 year to live, the things they go through, the things they're experiencing, their families coming back together. They're able to communicate with their wives, their daughters, their sons, their parents. They're able to pick up where they left off when they thought there was nothing left, and proceed forward and come back and help out those who are struggling, and take us by the hand and lead us. Because sometimes we just be led like sheep, because we are sheep, and we don't leave anybody behind.
Just with what Glenn was saying in closing here, I'd just like to wrap up with saying, as a result, also, I talked about all the men being there when I went in for my surgery, and Marty's staying with me, and Marty came up a couple times afterwards to the med center to visit with me, and then when I did my rehabilitation at Madonna, they brought the one of the follow-up meetings out to Madonna so I could still continue to be a part of that. And all of those guys on a weekly basis when I see them are all just as excited as I've been about my whole leg thing. And I want to say that, I mean, that I started to develop a relationship with God thanks to the Open Door mission. What the One Life to Live retreat truly put the capper on that of all cappers. And today I can, because of those men and because of what I've learned in this program, I can truly look at this and say, this is probably the most tragic thing that's happened to me in my life. But at the same time today, it is truly God's greatest blessing. Because if he wouldn't have done this to me, if you followed my story, if he wouldn't have done this to me, I was going to ride my time out in jail. I would have never made it to the Open Door mission. If I didn't make it to the Open Door mission, I wouldn't have gotten clean and sober. I wouldn't have this relationship with God. So truly what he's did is took the most tragic thing in my life and turned it into the biggest blessing ever. So.
And a healing moment.
And a healing moment. And a healing moment. Let me tell you. Back in February, when I had found out, they had told me that I'm going to lose my left foot and my right leg, and the bone disease was too far gone in my left, so there really was nothing left to do but to amputate. In my right, it had just started, and he told me, my surgeon said, let's go ahead and get your amputation, get you on a prosthetic, get you up and going, and then we're going to talk about this right foot or leg. And about a month ago, 6 weeks, I went for a follow-up on my amputation, and he said that looks great, and it has healed amazingly. That is just absolutely amazing what God has done for me on this. But he said, let's get some images of your right leg and see where we're at. And so we took some images, and I went back in the room, and I'm sitting there waiting for him. And the tech comes back in and says the doctor wants some more x-rays. And right away I went to, holy cow, we're probably going to have to amputate right now. It's not even going to be a couple months. No, I'm running all this race in my head. And we took the images, and I sat back in there, and I'm waiting for the surgeon. And when he came in the door, he looked at me and he said, Daniel, do you believe in miracles? And he put the x-rays up, and there was no sign of the bone disease at all in my right leg. None. And he showed me both x-rays. The last x-ray we took of it, which was back in April actually, and the other x-ray that we had just took a month ago. And he said, I can't even prescribe you corrective shoes. There's nothing to correct. It's just gone. And that, there's nobody else that could have took that away other than the Lord. And that's amazing.
Amen.
So, yes.
Well, guys, thank you for sharing your story with us.
Thank you.
I've been blessed by the Lord to be part of your journey and part of your stories, and I can honestly say that it just gives me goosebumps, or spirit bumps as we call them,
Right.
every time I get to see you guys and every time I get to talk to you. God's blessings on both of you, and thank you for sharing your story.
Thanks, Steve.